Meeting of the Amherst Township Trustees called to order. Please stand for the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Abraham?
Here.
Lynch?
Here.
Urick?
Yes.
And Kish is present. I have the meeting minutes from the March 26, 2024 regular meeting of the Amherst Township Trustees. The meeting was called to order at 7 p.m. by Lynch with pledge to the flag and roll call. Abraham, Lynch, Urick, and Kish were present. Also in attendance were G. Lynch, S. D'Ambrosio, K. Smarsh, G. Bemis, R. Nida, J. Evanson, and C. Evanson. 3/8/24. A motion by Lynch, seconded by Urick, to approve the March 12, 2024 regular meeting minutes as presented. All ayes. 3/9/24. A motion by Lynch, seconded by Abraham, moved to approve the financial reports and payment of items on the payment listing as presented and with reservations. All ayes. 3/10/24. A motion by Lynch, seconded by Urick, moved to approve that the February 2024 credit card account transaction detail has been reviewed per policy and is accepted as presented, subject to investigation. All ayes. Under audience concerns, C. Bemis from Workshop Players asked for an update on the lights in the park area adjacent to the Workshop Players Theater. Kevin will reach back out to Butchko for an update on the delivery of the supplies needed that are on that order. Kevin contacted Ohio Edison for the larger lights to be repaired. Both are in motion with hopefully will be complete by their next show in May. He also asked who would respond for a medical emergency. Trustee Lynch noted it would be Life Care Ambulance and the City of Amherst for fire, and the Lorain County Sheriff's Department provides law enforcement. Specific fire questions can be addressed to the fire inspector. Under correspondence, the Lorain County Public Health District Advisory Committee meeting is 6 p.m. Thursday, March 28, 2024 at New Russia Township Lodge. Trustee Lynch noted that packets contain information from the Ohio Senate Select Committee on Housing. He encouraged the other trustees to read up on this and stay informed. Their ultimate goal is to take zoning away from the townships. See the OTA Housing and Zoning Talking Points attachment. Lorain County 200th Bicentennial has planned to give each municipality a bicentennial tree to commemorate the 200 years that Lorain County has existed. The tree being planted in the spring is a Plusa dogwood and will be approximately 30 feet when it matures. The county is currently working with Don Mold's Plantation, who will be doing the actual planting. There will also be a plaque designating the tree as a bicentennial tree planted in 2024 for posterity. Having the same tree planted in each of the 34 designated municipal entities is a way to celebrate our heritage and the ties that bind us in our northern, southern, western, and eastern portions of our county. There is no cost to the municipality for planting the tree. The county is asking each community to pick the location and to contact the Bicentennial Committee. A spot in the park has been chosen, and the fiscal officer will supply the Bicentennial Committee with the information. Under reports, ambulance, board meeting of the Sandstone Ambulance District on Thursday, May 2nd, 2024, 4 p.m. at the Amherst Fire Station. 3/11/24, a motion by Lynch, seconded by Abraham. Approval of Ohio Edison Company street lighting request. Information agreement to install 13 HPS Colonial Post Top 95001 lights, 100 watt and associated equipment on eastern portion of the Sandstone Parkway. All ayes. 3/12/24, a motion by Lynch, seconded by Abraham. Authorization to reconsider Resolution 3424, authorizing memorandum of understanding for construction of 3 model homes in the Four Seasons at Sandstone subdivision. Roll call, Lynch and Abraham were ayes, Urick was a no. Under zoning, Zoning Inspector D'Ambrosio noted through March that there were a total of 3 permits. Year-to-date, 7 total permits with 1 new construction. He's also been handling complaints. Under Road, Park, and Cemetery, Road Superintendent Smarsh reported everything is running smooth. They are working on potholes and regular township maintenance. Also working on repairs to the rental property. The new truck is still scheduled for delivery sometime in August/September. Under complaints, they're being handled by the designated individual. Trustee Urick noted he was able to meet with Nick Kitsaros from First Energy. He will continue discussions to install new Hidden Valley subdivision streetlights in the road right-of-way, making access easier. Lynch completed forms for property tax exemption request for parcel 05000640000054. awaiting response from auditor and treasurer. Urick is to apply for stormwater fee waiver. Trustee Urick attended the county tax incentive review meeting for the TIF at Hampshire Farms. There is no information we requested regarding the TIF and the value of it and when it will be collected. David will share this information with the school district and trustees when available. Developer originally estimated average home selling prices of $255,000. The actual average selling price has been $344,000. Total market value of sales has been $17,590,000. Under new business, the next regularly scheduled meeting will be held Tuesday, April 9th, 2024 at 7 p.m. here at the Amherst Township Hall. 3/13/24, motion by Urick and seconded by Abraham to adjourn at 7:52 p.m. All ayes.
Thanks, Chris. Are there any changes or corrections to the March 26th meeting minutes?
No, I have none.
I have none.
And I make a motion to approve as presented?
Second?
Lynch?
Yes.
Urick?
Yes.
Abraham? Sorry.
Yes.
Sorry, Denny.
That's okay.
Okay, so then we have, you have the financial reports in front of you. Both of them. Payment listings are nothing out of the ordinary for the first half of the month. I have our year-to-date expenditures at $292,209.29.
How many? How much? 282,000?
Nope. $292,209.29. And our revenue is at $674,788.92.
And Chris, as far as the payment number 150-2024 to the Chronicle, is that 676 for the OPWC?
For the public hearing, yep, they were $300 a piece.
Okay, thank you.
300 plus bucks.
Which public hearing?
Not a public hearing, it's for the public notice
Or
for the
the-
OPWC.
Oh, for the
Bid opening.
bid opening, for the road
That's what I
projects.
meant. I meant bid opening.
Road projects, okay.
Are there any other questions on any of the financial reports?
No, I have none.
Okay, then I'll make a motion to approve the financial reports and the payments of the items on the payment listing as specified in the documentation provided by the fiscal officer.
Second.
Lynch?
Yes.
Abraham?
Yes.
Urick?
Yes.
Is there anything else there, Chris?
Not for financials, no.
All right, I'd like to welcome everyone in attendance this evening. If anyone has anything to bring before the trustees, please raise your hand. Giovanna, were you going to talk tonight?
Yeah.
See her here?
Yeah, I'm here.
This would be your chance.
All right.
Unless you want to stay for the whole meeting.
No. It's hard to believe on a nice light night like tonight that
Yeah.
I'm the only one here with you guys. Well, I think I know everyone here, but my name is Giovanna Scaletta-Bremke. I'm running for judge, and I just live down the street in Henrietta Township. So I've just been visiting different townships and saying hi and seeing what's going on and introducing myself. So thanks for having me.
And running for judge.
Yes. Yes.
All right, thank you. Is there anyone else? Okay, we'll move on. All right, correspondence, Chris?
The only correspondence I have is I did receive the applications for the 2024-2025 Lorraine County Township Association memberships. So I've printed out forms, so anybody who would like one, please fill them out, get them back to me as soon as possible so I can send the check to the Township Association. And this is the one that if you join the Township Association, you're also a member of OTA, so you can do the seminars, the educational things for no cost.
Right. which we definitely want to happen. That saves a lot of money and we avoid the travel distance cost. It's nicer with just the one payment instead of paying each time you wanted to see a webinar. Anything else there, Chris?
That's it.
Okay, David?
I have nothing to bring forward at this time.
Okay, Denny?
Nothing.
Okay, I have a couple of items that, there are copies in your packet. The first one is Lorraine County Public Health at the District Advisory Committee meeting that was held on March 28th. And what was decided there, the biggest thing was the chairperson for 2024 will be Carl Wiesheimer, the trustee from Grafton Township. I may have the vice chair and secretary mixed up, but I know that Bill Sprang, who's a veterinarian and a trustee in Wellington Township, I believe was appointed as the secretary, but it may have been vice chair because I might have them mixed up here. The other one would be, Mr. Sprang is the vice chair? Yes. Thank you. And Georgianne was my driver that night because I was still recovering from that surgery and unable to drive, so she was paying closer attention. Secretary would be Kipton Village Mayor Bob Mylander. And then you have, in your packets, there was follow-up because there were questions there, quite a few questions, but the two that needed some clarification and probably get the most calls that came out when the health department started the inspection of the home sewer treatment systems. And I'm sure almost everybody here received some calls from residents that were either upset or just asking questions. Or also we had a number of residents that received calls about an on-lot system, yet they were connected to the new sanitary sewers that had come through, and the health district just hadn't had their records updated yet, which is the first thing they're trying to do. But one of the things was of the inspections that have been performed so far, because the health district indicated there were quite a few failures or issues, but naturally then the next question is, well, what are the failures and how many and what percentage? And so they had to come back later with that information. And you've got that now here. Of the 200 inspections that have been conducted so far and the various issues, 146 that would be considered failures, or 73%, were a result of missing or non-operating aerators. So that's by far the largest. They just say followed distantly by non-operating UV bulbs, and then the next was leaking tanks or overflowing tanks. And if you look, there's a spreadsheet attached here for all the inspections, those 200 inspections that were conducted thus far. And I highlighted in here, I resorted this by community, and you'll see in Amherst Township, there were actually 4 inspections that were conducted. And typical of the others, we had the same thing. We had 3 of those 4 were aerator issues. One where it was completely missing, and they've indicated that it's been ordered. Actually, there's 2 of them missing, one locked up. The other one, the person had an old tank, and they were actually updating that and correcting it anyway. So even though the health department had come in and noted the failure, they knew the resident had already scheduled the replacement on that. So the experience in our township was very similar to the rest of Lorraine County in terms of the types of failures. Another question came up. Carl Wiesheimer, who is now the new president, he brought up, since this is the type of work he's involved in, he does replacement on lot systems. The health department indicated they're working with the residents to get these repaired. He was pointing out in sections in the Ohio Administrative Code and Ohio Revised Code that for the most part, when these things are full failures and can't be a simple replacement, they're required to replace the whole system. So the health department did check on that. You can see for system repair questions in the communication you have, they've addressed that. Our local health department is going to do everything they possibly can to allow a resident to try and get that system repaired, or at least to where it's reasonably functional. But there are going to be some instances where it can't be brought back into good working condition through repairs. And at that particular time, if they can't just replace that particular part, the whole system will have to be replaced. And obviously, those are very expensive for residents when that happens. But it's not that the health department's going to look the other way, but they're going to go out of their way to try and see that lower cost repair can be done versus outright replacement of the overall system. You've also I provided you with the 2023 Lorraine County Public Health Annual Report. They did go over the report in detail. There was, Dr. Lockhart was present there at the meeting because then questions came up as far as the causes of death, particularly when it was, the health department discussed they're still having the issue with the drug overdose deaths, even though that all the safety forces now pretty much are carrying the Narcan and trying to prevent that, and Narcan kits are available to the public that know that they might have somebody that's using or abusing these types of drugs, or not even sure what type of drugs they're using. If you recall, there was a period of time volunteers even went through one of our subdivisions because the health department was targeting it based on data as far as what their experience was. So it's, we're not exempt from these issues, but unfortunately, they don't separate out the number of opiate deaths. I know Dr. Lockhart had indicated he'd get with Dr. Miller, the coroner, and maybe they get more detailed information. But deaths from drug overdose are lumped in under accidents. They categorize it as an accidental death. So those 257 deaths there, that can be falls, that could be motor vehicle accidents, and that's where the deaths from overdose are actually lumped into that. So they did indicate it's going to be over 50%, but they didn't have an exact number, and I've received no updates since then. There's also, they're looking for people to take a survey. This survey is how they can make the streets safer in Lorraine County. People here are aware of the funding that's available on the Pathways to School for sidewalks. But if you recall, we had this discussion, I don't know if it was our last meeting or 2 meetings ago, where we're hoping with some of the development that's being considered on the former Golden Acres property that we can get a potential for the remainder of the property that can't be developed is to have that turned into a park and donated to the Metro Parks, and linking with property the Metro Parks already has on the north side of North Ridge. In our case, it'd be on the south side of North Ridge and between 58 and Dewey Road. And we have discussed that if to link those, our preference would be that there be some sort of underpass where pedestrians can get safely from the northern portion of the park to the southern portion of the park without having to cross North Ridge. And then I know in speaking with the mayor in the city of Amherst, they've got a potential development, I don't know where it stands yet, on North Dewey Road, which will bring in a large group of people, but they're hoping they can link the existing developments up there in Rock Creek Run. And if we were able to get the developers to donate this property to the Metro Parks, we can also link it to developments all in the city of Amherst to the south for those developments coming in off of 58. So there'd be quite a few connections here for several local subdivisions. But you can look at that particular annual report at your leisure. Okay, the second correspondence, and the trustees need to make a decision, and this is a communication that just came in today from the Department of Commerce, Division of Liquor Control. This is for the Old Maurice Timbers. There's a request here to transfer the liquor permit. as you guys are aware, you know, the Huffman family has purchased that property. They brought in plans already to the township for what they hope to put a development up there, which will kind of be a tavern, restaurant, in addition to keeping with the rock climbing wall, putting in some outdoor sporting type courts and whatnot for the community.
Are they gonna put it, excuse me, are they gonna put it on the south side or the north side of the ditch, or do you know?
They would actually, it'll be for theirs.
It'll be the south side of the ditch.
I'm not sure which ditch you're referring to, but.
Well, it's a ditch right immediately behind where the bar used to be.
Okay, I believe the new structure for the tavern restaurant would be north, and I think they take the athletic courts to the east and south. And they planned on having connections both on Middle Ridge and State Route 58, but right now they're running into some pushback from ODOT on the connection on State Route 58. And so they've considered linking it with the Amberry development, their rock climbing wall, and just using that entrance off 58. But I know ODOT's even pushing on them. They would prefer the Huffmans change that to be only a right in and right out, which obviously they don't want to do that. They've got full access right now. And so hopefully ODOT backs off on this. They've got such a long distance from the intersection to that entryway, but ODOT has changed the way they categorize 58, so that's going to, for anyone in the township, is going to create some difficulties in full access on State Route 58. But, you know, with this one having this transfer, I don't see an issue, but this is where the trustees need to decide, do you want a hearing on this or don't you want a hearing?
No, I don't want to.
David?
I understand who it is, and I understand what it's for, and I don't request a hearing on that. I'm a little bit confused over the way this is structured. See, it's a transfer, but it says new on this one. And, we'll get new. I knew there was a liquor permit there before, and obviously it's not there now. So I don't know how we got to new, but I've got no problem with them having the liquor permit. I just kind of question that.
Yeah, well, I'm not going to, if you want to call the Department of Commerce and ask them about filling out their form, that's fine, David, but right now, what they're indicating is we either want a hearing, we don't want a hearing, and if we want a hearing where we want it, sounds like we're all in agreement, there's no need for a hearing. So, Chris, you can see the box to check, and then check off Township Fiscal Officer, sign date, and send this in, and we'll be all set. That's all I had here for communications and correspondence. I don't know, Jenny, did I ask you if you had any?
No, I don't.
Okay. Okay, we'll move on to reports. We're already aware that the next Sandstone Joint Ambulance District meeting will be May 2nd. Sheriff's not here. Zoning, Sam?
Okay. As you see, I didn't print off a Excel list for the permits because we only have one since last time, so it was for an accessory building, so not much going on there. I just wanted to make you all aware, I am working with some properties, 2 Telegraph Road. I'm working with the residents to get their properties cleaned up. I have the addresses if you want them. 45706 Telegraph and 45010 Telegraph. Just wanted to let you know I'm working with them. Also, Vaughn's down on Levitt Road, after reading their hearing many years ago, they're not in compliance with their conditional use permit, so I went and talked to David Vaughn. and we're working on getting that corrected. And that's really about it. Linda and I want to talk to you about the new business registration. I think I'd rather turn it over to Linda, though. She's better talking about this than I am.
Okay. And just for the trustees, there are copies of the documentation that Linda and Sam are working on in your packet.
So we have, Sam's been driving around the township, and he's noticed that there's a lot of businesses that are supposed to be conditional use businesses, but they're not functioning as conditional use because we didn't know they were in there, and we didn't know what their business was. And some of these have been in for 10 years or more. So I know Chris has been kind of bringing new businesses to us as far as telling us.
Let's say
who's
Chris
where.
Nyhart.
Chris Nyhart, I'm
Does he have
sorry.
two?
I'm pointing at him.
Okay.
Chris, if he finds somebody out there when he's out doing his inspections, he lets us know and asks us what we know about it, and a lot of times we have no idea. We have some big structures that have 4, 5, 6, how many ever businesses within them. Some of them are auto repair along with offices, whatever else. Auto repairs, as you know, need a conditional use. Plus, there's the whole safety issue with the way that they're in there and doing, whether or not they have firewalls. The other issue that we came up with, or that we determined, was Chris has been asking for years for certificates of occupancy. And a lot of them don't have those, and that's a state requirement.
Most of them don't have.
Most of them don't have them. Yeah.
142 businesses don't have C of Os, and they're state required.
So that's another issue that we're coming up with. So what we would like to do is to institute a new business registration in which all businesses doing business within Amherst Township register with us. They show us their certificate of occupancy. If it's a large business that has one certificate of occupancy to cover the whole building, we need to see that from the landlord or the property owner. The other issue is that if there's a change of use in the businesses, that requires a new conditional or a certificate of occupancy. So right now, if they do have these certificates, they're functioning like maybe they were all retail stores, and now all of a sudden we have a restaurant in there, or we have an auto repair. So we're finding that there's that disconnect because nobody's been monitoring, nobody's been watching. So we feel that if we started with a new business registration, we have a whole form listed, questions, property owners, business owners, what they're doing, and we can potentially get the ones that need the conditional use, and we can potentially, hopefully, get the ones that don't have certificate of occupancies and mandate that they have those. I do have in your packet some of the costs that we found, and it's not cheap to do this new business registration, but for safety reasons and for state requirement reasons, we feel that this is necessary. So you'll see on the packet that I have a bunch of different boxes. And the one is if it's existing businesses, the initial cost, it's costing us with administrative fees, Chris going out to inspect them, that's like $101 a year is what that would cost us. Right now, the way it's set up is whatever time Chris spends, and that's Nyhart with the fire department, spends out inspecting, whether it's a new business and he does a first inspection or it's an annual inspection, the township is paying Chris to do that and the business owners are not. And as you can see, as I said, it's $101 for the existing businesses. The new business registration initially is $117, our cost. So we would like to institute a cost of $125 initially, and then an annual rate of $100. In order to be fair, since some of these conditional uses were not ever told that they needed that, we would waive the initial hearing with the board and their initial fee of whatever it is for the conditional use, $568, I think it is. We would waive that and let them continue on, but then from January of next year on, we will charge them the $166, which is the renewal fee. And the same with the existing businesses, we would waive the initial registration fee of $125 if they send their paperwork back in a timely manner, and then in January, we'll start with the $100 a year fee. And that will cover what we're paying for the fire department to go out and do these, because right now, we're paying it out of our fire fund. And I have Chris's bill here for the last time. I think this was the fourth quarter. It was $788 for Chris's time alone. Now, that may be some site plan review stuff too, but that's what we're paying him per quarter, approximately.
Are there any comments?
No, I agree with her.
Well, Linda, it's, I agree with waiving the fee as far as the initial fee that you put down here, which is just a cost recovery fee. And I know we've got the letter here from the prosecutor's office saying that this is appropriate. I'm not sure, we probably have to ask if we can waive that conditional use fee, because that deals with zoning.
Well, we will have the fee, we're just not going to make them come back for a hearing. If they've been here 10 years operating a business without a conditional use, and all of a sudden we go in and we tell them, you know, a pet grooming place needs a conditional use, and now you have to pay $568 and go before the board.
Okay,
We were
so there's no
questioning whether that
hearing.
was fair.
There's no hearing fee because there's no hearing.
Right.
Right. We just didn't
Okay.
think that was right. It's 10 years,
But-
later.
Yeah, like, oops, we made a
What if there's
mistake.
conditionally permitted use and it says it should have a setback or there's restrictions on it and this is obviously not in compliance and its use is not in compliance? What
Well,
do
I
you
think
do
I
in
would
that
look,
case?
I think I would look into that first before we waive anything. That would make sense.
Yeah, we would make sure they were in compliance.
Yeah. Without a doubt, yeah. But, I mean, most of them, they've been here for 10, 15 years.
Yeah.
And they're fine. It's just, it's on our books that they're supposed to be under a conditional use permit. It just never
It was just
got enforced, I guess.
either the employees here, the zoning inspector was not aware of them coming in and opening a business, which a lot of times we're not. We do have some property owners that the tenants move in and out very quickly, and they are just rented to, you know, yeah, come in here, bring your business, $1,000 a month,
It's
whatever.
general business, come in, you know.
And that's why,
And nobody's checking with us.
that's why we're trying to do the business registration for like tracking, so we can get a hold of all this, so this doesn't happen again. That's a lot of businesses that are just out there, their buildings have never been inspected, and they're supposed to be inspected so they can get their certificate of occupancy.
They have to be inspected, there's no
State,
grandfathering
I
in
can
on
give you-
that. They have to have a fire inspection.
They have to have
So-
a building inspection, and then he clears it with the fire inspector. I have it's in the state code is 111.1. I have it all. I can get it to you guys. You can read it. But yeah, it's required. And the building inspector actually is the one that's supposed to be, but again, he doesn't know who's moving in and moving out, and I don't know.
And this way, we would be
I
able
think
to
that-
tell.
A lot of businesses.
Some of these, within the last year or so, I would think you'd be able to bring in for a conditionally permitted use hearing. You know, like you say, some of the longer ones, yes, I can see that as
So we put like a
being
time,
difficult to do.
5 years.
I'm just thinking, I'm trying to think.
It's a tough-
I would talk to the prosecutor too on that too and see how they think to handle that. You don't want to say.
Well, I did speak
You
with him,
did?
and I actually, yeah, and he said and that's, because my concern was because it's been so long. He said there's no
Yeah.
statute of limitations or anything like that. He said you can go back and tell them they needed to do it. And we just thought it was fair not to do the hearing. Again, I'll look into it, make sure it's not required, but unless you think we should do them all, I don't know. There's 20 of them.
There's some that should, Well, they should have regulations on them, and things are conditionally permitted uses for a reason, and then part of that, there's extra requirements that are required, redundancy, I guess. But, no, there's extra regulations there, and usually they're there for a reason. If it's something that makes a lot of noise, you want to control hours of operation, something that
Sure.
it's got a lot of chemicals in it, or like painting, or you want to regulate that, and you might
Yeah.
want extra distance, and
I can tell you none of them are like that. We have a couple that are auto repair, they're supposed to be certificate of occupancy. One down the street, the dog grooming place,
We have a couple dog groomers.
yeah, I mean,
We
they've
have a
been there.
drive-through beverage that's not had a conditional use.
I don't think there's any hazard there.
And that one's
again-
been there since
And
the
again,
80s.
if we get these, if the building inspector now will inspect them, and then the fire inspector, so then they're safe, that's my biggest concern. And so they can get their certificate of occupancy. And then as far as conditional use permits, I totally agree with what you're saying, but I know them all, they're all pretty simple. Oh, Does the board want to put conditions on it? I don't know, that's up to you.
wow.
I just didn't think it was fair, 10 years later.
And we
I
don't
mean,
have any complaints.
Alpha Dog, how long have
Yeah.
they been there?
Yeah.
I understand what you're saying. I'm just want to think, are we going to open the doors up for any problems for ourselves if we do it this way versus another way? That's the only thing on my mind right now. So I say talk to the prosecutor. He said like that. You can only, so much. I mean, some things that may have been promulgated under the old zoning book. And, that drive-through went through the 80s. You gotta look at the code, it was,
Well, and I
At the
said that to the
time.
prosecutor, but like he said, things have changed. So it's okay to say, okay, well, now this is what's required.
well, what do you have to add?
I think you really got to look at both sides of the coin in this issue. Now, one of the things that's been popping up in Ohio is fireworks storage and sales out of these buildings that are, and we had one burn. We had a bunch of firemen get hurt, and it also went beyond the structure of origin and burned a whole bunch of stuff up. So, if you don't have some kind of control over it, this is what you're going to end up with. So, just so you know, it's already happening here.
So to your question, Dave, a lot of the businesses in the township, and the city was the same way, if there's requirements, if the business owner has no idea that these items are required, one being the certificate of occupancy, one being the fire inspection, which we've been going through the township, finding businesses that are, we're still working our way through. I think we're probably 80% through with all the businesses in the township. If a lot of people, if they don't know what's required, they don't know they have to do it. The minute you go in and tell them that, look, these are the requirements, these are the state minimum requirements that you have to have for life safety in your building, and it's all enforceable through the fire code. The minute you tell them that, they're like, oh, nobody ever told me that. Now, now they know what's required and they actually do it. So the second, you go back year number 2 and, you walk in, you're there for 15, 20 minutes, update the information if there's anything. If not, they make sure that they have all their life safety items, extinguishers, exit lights, sprinkler, fire alarm, make sure everything's all up to date. It makes it a lot easier. So I guess my question, my issue with the township is we have all these businesses in the township, they move in, they move out. We have the exact same problem in the city. If a business moves out, the only people that really catch them is the fire department when we go do their annual inspections. So, the building inspector, he drives around town, we got a full-time building official, if he doesn't see it, he doesn't stop. So we're the ones the fire department are the ones that interact with the people 90% of the time.
What about the water department?
Our water department, we don't,
Change of,
they don't give
Change
us
of
that
address
information.
and-
They don't give us any of that information. We actually have to, all they care about is they send them a bill and they pay the bill. We don't see any of that information. But like here in the township, I mean, everybody drives around the township. If they see something that, a new business that moves in, it's, you know, I don't know what the conditional use requirements are. So when we find a new business, we'll give it to Sam, and they can research that to see what needs to be done. But as far as our end of it, we just go through and do the fire inspection, get the contact information, make sure all life safety stuff is all in place. That's what our job is. A certificate of occupancy, I used to ask. I would tell the people to call. I gave up because they would call, and then I would get, you know, I called 10 times, I got no reply. Well, okay, I'm done. I know what your use group is, I know what your building class is, I know what your occupant load is. But state regulation says, the building code says you have to have a certificate of occupancy issued by the building official. The second part of that is, that should not be issued until you have a current fire inspection done within at least 1 year of that building or that owner. So both of those have to fall in place before that's issued. And I believe part of the problem is that your building official charges the business owner to go out and do the inspection for the certificate of occupancy. When we go out and do it, right now, I believe you guys are eating whatever it costs for us to go out and do it for the first time. In the city, and what you guys are proposing to charge is very cheap. In the city, it's probably 3 to 5 times that much to get a certificate of occupancy in the city, and you get the exact same inspection. You get a fire inspection, you get a building inspection. That's it, but it's 3 to 5 times more than what you guys are you know, considering to charge. So your certificate of occupancy is very inexpensive, or your business registration, I should say, is very inexpensive. But it is a good way to track, so you know who's here, who's moving out, somebody moves in. We have a few problem areas in the township, which I always give them a little, you know, motivational stimulation in the form of a state citation or a citation to make them, you know, a little bit more responsive to, you know, you have a building, you have 10 businesses in there, you can't be painting cars on this side, and this guy's cooking food on this side. You can't do that. So now we have to try to get the building official back in to go back and reissue that because these businesses moved in and out without a valid certificate of occupancy. And there may be a 2-hour or a 3-hour firewall separation that's required. That's not our job, that's the building official's job. So the building official needs to be contacted by the business owner to go back in and issue a new certificate of occupancy and do an inspection. So I mean, for us, it's all about life safety, and it should be for everyone. The building official, it all starts with him, but there are certain requirements that have to be met before he can issue that certificate. So I know it's a lot of info to digest, but it's all mandated by the state. The state fire code says this is what your job is, this is what you have to do. The state building code says the exact same thing. And I believe Sam has the numbers for what the building official is supposed to be referencing in the building code for certificate of occupancy. So there is a stipulation in the building code that says he can go out and reissue that without going through all 20 steps. He can go out and reissue the certificate of occupancy for a different business in the same building. So it's not, I mean, it sounds like it's a lot, but it would just be, I mean, I would guess 1 trip for him to go back, go through everything, and then wait for us to go out and do our inspection so that they both coincide, everything all passes, and he can issue that valid certificate. Because once the building official offers that or signs that certificate of occupancy, the code does not allow him back in the building unless he's invited by the fire official or by the building owner. So he just can't walk back in and say, oh, you got to do this. So that's not the way it works. He has no recourse to go back in to do any of that. So.
Okay, are there any other questions or comments?
no.
Have none.
All right, well, there isn't a prepared resolution here because Sam and Linda and Chris have all been working on this for some time and doing quite a bit of work on it, and I do appreciate that. But, and for Chris Kish, the fiscal officer, I can give you a copy, but I think that it's probably best that we memorialize this with a motion. So I'm going to make a motion that the township administrator and the zoning inspector are authorized to initiate a business registration and certificate of occupancy program and to establish appropriate fees for cost recovery.
I'll second that.
I'm not
motion.
done yet. And do you want this later, or, okay?
Yeah, I'm not going to try and write it all.
All right.
Type it all right
We're also going to authorize the waiving of the initial registration fee for existing businesses, and conditional use hearings fees for existing businesses may be waived based upon a review of the property or business by the zoning inspector, township administrator, and then the township administrator, indoor zoning inspector will consult with the prosecutor on the waiving of conditional use hearings for existing businesses. So that'll be my motion.
I'll second that.
Okay, question. Do we have a
If you ask another question, you gotta write it.
do we have a set amount that we want to do right now? We want to do
She's got
$100?
$125 per business is what she's got, an annual fee of $75 to $100, but I didn't want to tie that down, David. That's why we're authorizing them to set up the program and determine what the fee is, but you've got.
Okay, that's fine, but I think what we need to do as a board is, once they come up with a fee, we need to adopt that fee.
I will add in here and a fee not to exceed $250. Because I don't want to have this going back and forth and waiting more meetings.
Thank you.
These guys have all spent an awful lot of
We've
time
spent
on
a lot of
this.
time.
I know we've saw them before. I know they're also working with Georgianne. They're working on forms. They're working on identifying the process. So I really don't want to
I understand what
hold
you're
them
saying, Neil, but I just, and kudos to them, and I agree, but I think that we as a board are the only ones that have the authority to set the fee.
Just said it, not to
Yeah.
exceed $250.
But we've
So if they can set it
delegated that. I
lower-
don't know if we can delegate that to them. At some point, we have to put our
Yes,
stamp of
we
approval,
can.
that's all.
We just approved it, not to exceed $250. They can do something lower, they can't go higher.
David, if you look at those sheets too that I have, everything I have pretty much justified. And we don't go over, we're just looking to
I understand.
get our costs covered.
I'm trying to.
So we're not gonna
I'm just
charge
trying to trace the
$200.
authority,
We have that
Linda,
all written.
that's all. The auditor comes in and
Hard,
says,
but
you know, you got people making up numbers, and,
Well, these
no,
aren't made-up numbers.
No, they're not
There's
made up.
very
Justified.
specific
They're
details
not.
on here, down to the pennies for paper. I mean,
but
and you've
it
already
should
heard
be
Chris,
done by,
Chris
what I'm saying
Nyart
is
said
it
this
should
is
be
only
done
a
in a,
third of what the city charges.
it should be
to put
done with
in comparison.
a formal resolution or part of, like,
Well,
eventually part of the organizational minutes.
All right, David, then can you set the price?
When you're ready, I'll
No,
accept
just
your
set, can you just
recommendation.
set it
He
tonight
has
so we
a-
can move on?
We're going to go with this motion now, and what I'm going to recommend, since
Okay.
David's brought it up, David, at the next meeting, you bring a prepared resolution with all the details on it ahead of time, and make sure you email it out, just like I do with every resolution, so we can all review it prior to the meeting, okay? So no later than the Sunday before our next meeting. And that doesn't mean Sunday at midnight. Okay?
So
Does that
the-
sound reasonable? Until then, this motion will stand so that they can move forward and we're not holding them up.
Thank you.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor.
Lynch,
Yes.
Abraham,
Yes.
Yuri.
I'm gonna say no, and I'll tell you why. I don't know. I want to delegate, but, I understand delegating, but I think we have to set the price as a board.
We just
I would-
did, not to
okay.
exceed $250. We've got a township administrator and a zoning inspector that I have confidence in their abilities, David, but, we can, when you get that resolution prepared for our next meeting, we can set the fee at that time if you want something more specific, okay? As long as it doesn't exceed $250. All right? You do have in the minutes, David's going to provide that resolution, right? And you've got plenty of resolutions, David, I've emailed to you to use as a template, okay? Okay, anything else?
Do you
Sam?
guys have what you need now?
Yes.
Yes,
Okay,
yes, thank you.
okay. Thank you.
Okay, we've also got, and some of this will be coming up in a public hearing. You see that Morgan and Georgianne have displayed here some property between State Route 58 and Middle Ridge. This is property that's owned by Paul Slyman. He's got an interested buyer that had come into the zoning commission at our meeting last week to give an informal presentation on this particular property. There's more than what's outlined in yellow. You can see all those text boxes up there show all the other properties that are owned by Mr. Slyman. This property is zoned. Can you move down to what that property is currently zoned by scrolling down there? Keep going. There you go. All right, you can see, now if you notice, the blue portion is what's general business, and you see the green portion of what was highlighted before is all residential agricultural. What they're proposing, can you put up the map that shows their proposal? It'll be on the other document that you have there. Okay. What they're proposing here is a mixed-use development. They had originally applied for multifamily, but in either case, they're talking about 136 living units. But the developer saying he would continue to own those and actually use them as rentals, even though they're all individual single-family homes. There would be 9 acres of frontage left on 58 that he'd want as commercial.
I think that he said, what was it, 3, 4, and 5 unit?
The maximum is 5 units. There are 2 5-unit townhomes in there. You'll see one if you go, it's the most southeasterly townhome. That's the 1 5-unit. And then if you go to the intersection there that just heads to the north, you'll see the one right in that corner in the east is a second 5-unit. And then in the entryway coming in are the 2 units. The others are all pretty much the 4-unit townhomes that are there. But in any case, there'd be 136 units. Their initial proposal at their informal hearing was that this be a multifamily type development. I'd actually requested that if they're going to do this, and it's my understanding, I haven't gone through the plans that they've now turned into Sam, but I think, Sam, you said they have agreed to do it all mixed-use overlay,
Yes.
MU3.
Yep.
Okay, and David heard this, Denny, but, so this will be for your benefit. I had given my reasons for this was if it went multifamily, we know how sometimes a developer comes in and then all of a sudden they leave. With the multifamily, it allows the apartment buildings, in our case, they could be as high as 3 stories in this particular area. Then it would get, someone be asking for an even higher density. There's also, if it were rezoned to multifamily, the trustees would get a say as to whether that's rezoned, but we would have no say on the specific uses that go in there if they're permitted. So if somebody wanted to put in 3-story apartment buildings, they could. And that wasn't something that I was inclined myself personally to support. There's also with the multifamily allows the manufactured homes, not that there's anything wrong with manufactured homes, but they tend not to be the same quality as built from the ground up. There was a difference with the multifamily does require a minimum of 30 acres, or multifamily requires 5 acres, whereas the mixed use requires 30 acres. This is well over that 30-acre unit there. The other thing is if you made this all mixed use, right now they're giving this proposal you don't know where that line's going to be for general business. And if we say, okay, you want to just multifamily, they'd have to draw a line, and you know what happens, they come in after they get into the real details of the site, and they want to adjust something. Now we've got to go through multiple more public hearings, where if they do that whole area as mixed use, they now have that flexibility, and at that point, it'd be through the preliminary plan and final development plan review. And that's the other thing I like, is with the multifamily regulations, it gives both the zoning commission and the trustees a chance to weigh in now on what development really goes in there versus just, hey, it's a permitted use. You know, as long as it's a permitted use, Sam issues a zoning certificate and away they go. This way they have to actually put together a full development plan, which I expect this developer's long on their way will actually see. And if we need some adjustments or on that, we both, the zoning commission, the trustees, get a say in it. You do see, if you come straight off 58, you're heading to the east, you see the area that's highlighted in red, which is the flood zone area. You notice the two streets that the developer proposes stop just before that ditch crossing. Obviously, there's a high cost in crossing a tributary to the East Branch Beaver Creek like that, but they do show 17 acres to the east. That's still some future development. That's not something that they've detailed on yet, but it's something that if they are successful and get the funding to go across that ditch, that particular parcel can develop. I didn't read through their actual application, but I believe even that's mixed use then, Sam?
That's the way I read it.
Okay, which again will give them the flexibility so they don't have to come back with us. And then the area that follows along the Lakeshore Railway and Turnpike ramp, they're proposing that all to be left as open space. The developer's talking about putting walking trails through there and some of the wooded area, but he'd just be using wood chips from the trees that he has to take down. I mean, that's obviously with the homeowners association and the developer maintaining ownership, they'd have to do some maintenance on that, or it's going to eventually grow over once those wood chips decay. This also would be a full private street development, which is nice for the township because we get that added pavement coming in there, but we actually will not have to take care of the maintenance on this. The developer's logic, the way he explained it, was he has other developments in Erie County, and prior to them becoming more wealthy as they've developed, he was in some townships, and he said they tended not to take care of the roads and they'd end up pot-marked, whereas if he controls the roads, he can maintain them. And also with private roads, his preference is that he puts in asphalt with concrete curb and gutters. And so that's the proposal. Obviously, this has to go to the zoning commission for approval in the township, but I think, Sam, he's on the May 7th meeting for the public hearing on that. And then the trustees will probably set their public hearing for the succeeding month to comply with the ORC timeline. But I just wanted to bring this forward so everybody's aware of what's happening, and this has changed slightly since the informal meeting, just in that instead of asking for multifamily and general business, zoning change is that it's going to be a mixed-use overlay, so the MU3, and I would suggest that the trustees read up on those sections so that they're prepared for when the public hearing comes before the zoning commission and also before the trustees. So I don't know if you have any comments on it. I just wanted you guys to see what was discussed and be prepared, and you've now got your the larger prints there for your own packets for review prior to the hearing.
Okay, thank you, Neil.
And the next item that still comes under zoning, this deals with the sandstone development. And Morgan, can you bring up the documentation for the sandstone sign design standards? Okay, thank you. Right now, this is the section of the zoning. What happened here was, and you've got a copy of the email explaining all these things with the whole email string, is when the developers for sandstone had come with a design review for a final development plan for one of the phases, the zoning commission had pointed out on one of the signs that the sign didn't meet our sign regulations, and that they'd either have to apply for a variance or adjust the size of the sign. And the developer was proposing, coming up with, hey, they thought the way our sign standards were, our regulations, weren't going to fit them to what they wanted. But once they went back and looked at our planned development district regulations, which is what this is zoned for, they found out it specifically says, and this is the section of our zoning resolution, it says, prior to final development plan being approved for any portion of any subdistrict, the applicant shall submit design standards and criteria for signs and fences, which shall be applicable to the final plan being submitted and to all remaining areas in the subdistrict. Once they saw that, they realized, oh, they should have actually done this ahead of time, and that would have avoided the signs being evaluated based on our sign regulations. But absent these design standards from their proposal, the zoning commission really had no choice but to look at the sign regulations. So the developer has presented their signage design standards here, and they're asking that this be on the next zoning commission meeting on May 7th also. But the issue comes in, it says that that section further goes on, when approved, the sign and fence design standards and criteria shall be a supplement to and thus considered part of the approved preliminary development plan. Well, first off, keep in mind this preliminary development plan was approved as a result of a mediation through the courts. So the preliminary development plan's approved. We say that the approval of these proposed design standards will become part of the preliminary development plan, but nowhere in our zoning does it say who approves it or the process for approval. So it's just a weakness in this section of the zoning. So what I would hope is that what I'm suggesting, and I want to hear from the trustees as to how we do this, is I would think that we would approve these standards just as an amendment, as the approval process for an amendment to the preliminary design standards. Now that may take longer than the developer would hope, because that requires review by the zoning commission, which they'll do on May 7th, and also review by the trustees. I don't see any real issue here with this. I don't expect them to fight that. I'm sure they want to get their signs on order and start constructing things, because as you're aware, they're already starting on the 3 model homes. The basements have been poured, and on one I drove back there Sunday, it was open. Today they got the walls up on one of the 3. And I imagine it won't be too long. The roof trusses will be in, and you'll be seeing them going to town on this. And, obviously they're going to want, since once they have model homes and are bringing prospects through, they're going to want also their entryway signs up so that they dress things up on the front. So it's just, I don't know if for David and Denny, if you guys had a chance to review this. You had this, it didn't come in until late Sunday, so I had to pencil it in on the agenda. The only difference that there's also, you received an email with an updated design, signage design standards. was that I had a question as to what in the heck is a mid-size sign. Even Googled it, nothing came up. And so they did update the standards to give the figure for the mid-size sign. And Morgan, can you bring up those design standards and show that? Because it's nowhere in the ones we originally received. There it is, it's this, you see the come and go, can you scroll down a little bit? And that's their figure A, so this is what they're calling a mid-size sign. So it's, to me, it's more like a service station or some other business where they put it up on a pillar and have it up. I don't know why they call it mid-size. Right now, Google doesn't recognize it, but that's what the design standard says. I'd also mention, because this also applies to fences, and I know Sam's indicated that, yes, they will have some fences here, and I know there's been discussion about redwood. I wasn't sure if there were any other fencing plans that you've seen on this.
I'm going to say no.
Okay, so they're
No,
going to
not
have to
process.
come up with something there for their fence criteria, or it defaults back to what our zoning is, which I know Redwood's already said they would comply with. So if that's the case, if they're happy with the default, it's not going to be an issue.
When you say that sign, when you're using that sign as an example, Neil, are you talking about the actual sign face? Are you talking about the sign face and the height?
This type of sign, if you go down to mid-size sign, you'll have to scroll down. It just references back to figure A that that's a mid-size sign. As far as what is defined of the sign portion, David, you've got to read through the detail. They got pretty detailed on here. It would not be that whole, necessarily they've got monument sign, mid-size sign. To me, that's the same as their monument sign, but they're calling it mid-size. But he puts on all the dimensions on there that indicate the maximum amount of where they can actually have information, whether it's two-sided, one-sided, whether it's internally lit, whether it's externally lit. I don't have these memorized, but I look through these things. This is actually, to me, more detailed than what our current sign regulations say. But it does meet with what our plan development district says, that they should all be coordinated. And you can see what they're trying to do is have the sign materials in terms of the support looking consistent throughout the development, both the residential and commercial section. So that, it looks dressier than just some of the signs on a post that's painted that occasionally, rust if people don't take care of it. I mean, we've all seen those around here. But I would suggest you read through the detail. The main thing here is for the trustees, absent detailed specifications in our zoning regulation, do you agree of just doing it with what an amendment would be to the preliminary development plan in terms of the process? Or do you want something else? Right now, a sign is considered accessory use. Any accessory use is strictly the approval of the zoning inspector. So Sam decides. If it's part of a site plan review for a new business, then the zoning commission gets to decide. For plan development district, we say the developer will supply a sign design standard, and once it's approved, it becomes part of the preliminary development plan. But it doesn't say who approves it or how it's approved. So again, my recommendation is the approval process be the same as the original preliminary development plan. That's my recommendation. If you have something else, I'd like to hear it.
No, I concur with you on that right now.
That's mine also.
Okay, well then we'll just let this go through the process then, Sam, and the zoning commission will hear it, and review it in May, and then the trustees will just do it at our next meeting. This isn't a public hearing or anything major. It'll probably just be by motion that, they agree to it or they ask for some change to it. Okay?
Also, if they could explain a few things.
Yep. Well,
That would help.
okay. Well, then we'll move on. Okay, Kevin had indicated to everyone that he wouldn't be here this evening, but you do have under roads, and it's printed front and back, we did receive notice from the Ohio Public Works Commission of the approval of the funding for both of our projects. This is both the resurfacing of Middle Ridge from the Brownhelm Township line to Quarry Road, in addition to some concrete repairs down on Moss Canyon. So they still, as normal, give you the caution. They still tell budgetary things and yada, 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 and we can bid it, which Linda's already posted, but we can't award a bid till after July 1st. So that's just information for you. You've also got, and this one here, we won't need a resolution for because we included this in the last resolution in the application for the 2 mini grants. We were approved for both mini grants. This is one that replaces the several catch basins down in Hidden Valley. Let's see, let me get the right one here because there are 4. I think it's 4 catch basins that are being replaced, and then there's a storm sewer there that's actually going to be repaired, so it'll be remortared and bricked up. And if you look at both those you've seen in the actual application before, is that they are undermining the roadway there, and so the road itself is cracking and moving. That may be the next thing that if it's not taken care of as part of this, that Kevin may be asking for to dig out that concrete and do a full base repair. But this does require, and I believe the trustees have now signed this prior to the meeting, the signature of all 3 trustees on the 2 MOUs that the stormwater districts provided to get the reimbursement for this, because this is on a reimbursement basis for these grants. Okay, we'll move on to, that's it for stormwater and phase 2 complaints. Sam, I think you told me, since we've had discussions, that the issue with the security light that glare there on Middle Ridge, that's now taken care of, so we
Done.
can take that off.
Yep,
Thank
they
you.
worked it out.
And I don't know if Kevin's heard back on the park trail lighting there to help workshop players for their attendees to have a safe path, but we'll find out. The other item on those odors up on Middle Ridge, we'll see how that business does come summertime. How about the Broadway Taylor property maintenance, the 340 Broadway?
Well, it's done, but we haven't been paid yet.
We did.
Okay.
We just got paid.
Oh, we
Chris
just got
gave me the
paid?
thing.
Oh,
Oh,
cool.
so I can take that off, because that's where you
Yeah.
asked me to leave it on until we got reimbursed. So
Just
I
got
can
it
take that
tonight.
off then, Linda?
So that was for Broadway and the lot behind, we got paid for it.
Yep, I have the paper for you.
Sweet, thank you.
Good deal, thank you. All right, well, that's it then. All right, the other items on here, I'm just going to open it to the board. They've got specific responsibilities assigned. Is there anything to bring forward?
I just have a question for you, Neil. As far as working with stormwater, trying to get a reduction on the stormwater fee for the property that the building is on, do we have plans? Where are the plans for this building? Who's got those, Kevin or?
I would suggest you talk with Kevin or Linda, because Linda's had Morgan working on reorganizing everything and trying to, get them organized here, but I would suspect that Kevin has them if you need that. I assume maybe you're trying to get sizing, but the reality is this property should be very easy to get the credit for it. I mean, we did both the pre and post construction. We have a detention basin available on the property to capture the storm water. We do the regular maintenance on that detention basin. So, and that costs us quite a bit of money to put in. And, you know, so that's why we should be able to get the credit for this property. For the property across the street, that's the one, David, you're gonna have to wordsmith it, but as far as I'm concerned, it's not just that property. We want the credit, because what we're doing is we're taking residential yard waste that would normally be thrown in the streets, or go into the storm sewers, or be put in the ditches in the backyards. We're now allowing people to bring that up here, we're collecting it, we pay for the grinding of that, we pay for the removal of that. You know, as you're aware, that cost is now upwards of over $12,000 a year. That's not even our internal cost, that's just paying an outside contractor to grind and get rid of it. So, you know, you've got to read through the details they have of what you need to do to get that credit. And you may want, I suggested in the past that you might want to talk with even the county engineer if you need some help on that. But as you're aware, that's a very expensive operation to run. It doesn't seem right. We're paying stormwater fees on these properties when I think we're eligible for the credit. As far as the one for we actually pay some property taxes. I've turned in the forms and we're just waiting for the response back from the treasurer and the auditor. But I expect they're going to agree with those forms that we shouldn't be paying property tax. I'm hoping they'll reimburse for the past years that they were charging. But we'll just have to wait and see what the response is. But yeah, just give Kevin a jingle on that, okay? Maybe if you get that and that resolution done by the next meeting, we'll all be happy.
All right.
Okay, and I will on April 17th, I'll attend that consortium meeting for you for the curbside yard or waste pickup. All right, anything else?
No, nothing else come before the board right now.
Okay, Danny?
No.
Okay, our next regular meeting will be 7 o'clock on Tuesday, April 23rd. I've already talked with Kevin, no need for a work session. Any other audience concerns or questions? Yes, Chris?
Two things. You said the models are putting up are Redwood or Four Seasons? Down at Sandstone?
I think that one, if you drive through, you'll see them. I think that's going to be the Four Seasons one. I can't recall the name of the roads. I don't have the roads memorized, but it's right on the intersection of Sandstone Parkway.
I drove by and I saw them. They're down there building 3 of them.
The model home.
But I wasn't sure how far Redwood was going to be down.
Oh, yeah, it's
That's
not.
Four
Redwood's
Seasons.
at the beginning, right?
No, the model
Redwood's
homes and
off to the
everything was for the Four Seasons.
Okay.
Redwood, nothing's come in yet as far as Redwood.
Okay.
Yeah, there's nothing on Redwood yet.
Okay, and then the other developments, I mean, I get drawings from people that want to put things up in the township, and they have a lot of questions. And a lot of times I end up talking to Lorraine County Rural Water, Joe Waldecker.
Right.
And a lot of them, like Mr. Slyman's property, I asked, you know, where's the water at? And I believe I talked to the gentleman from Rafter Limited the day he was here to ask where the water is. I mean, a lot of people come in with these drawings, and they say, you know, I want to put this development here. It's like, well, maybe you need to check with, we have another one down on 58 who wants to put up a mini storage, but they're going to be business suites, and they're going to have sewer and water. And I've talked to Rural Water, and they said there's no water there. They won't do it. They won't. The guy showed hydrants on his property, and after talking with Rural Water, they said there's no way that they would do it. They would choke it down from a 6-inch to a 3-inch line to put a hydrant in the back, which does us absolutely no good. I mean, it's kind of nice working with Joe. He either says yes or no, which can lead us down another path. Now we can make these people do something else to be a little more proactive or have some kind of a pre-action device in their building since the water is not available. And I believe we talked with, I think did you get a copy of the email from him about the hydrants on?
Yes, he
58?
just sent that this past week.
Okay. Okay, so when I had talked to him, he asked about the resolution, I believe. I know I got a copy of it from Linda. I didn't know if it went to everybody or not, but I believe they're putting in 4. The township's committed to 2.
The township paying for 2.
Okay.
The developer's paying for the other 2.
The Sandstone developer?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay.
And then Joe asked about, which I didn't respond yet, because it was sent, like, I think he was expecting a response from Denny or me. But
From
Denny's our
across the street?
rural water, yes, and
Yes.
I was just gonna suggest, contact the city of Amherst. I was gonna give them your information or the mayor, but that's not us.
I believe that's, whenever she decides to do that, that's, the city of Amherst is gonna provide the fire protection water for the hydrant, and the rural water is gonna get the metered water, I believe is the way it was explained, because they cross that, even though that lot is in the city of Amherst, rural water crosses that lot with their water line. And the city is short of that. The city's down by the Kitty College or Child Time is where the city water main stops at, so.
Okay,
But I try to, when all this stuff comes through, I try to get a hold of rural water to see, if they're gonna say yes or no. So that way, when it comes down to the final plan, that if we have to take another path to make it safe because we don't have water, then, it's kind of, and I try to get Joe involved in a lot of that, and he tries to talk with the city of Amherst. They try to work all that out. But it's just kind of, interesting that these people come and I'm gonna put up 136 houses. Well, where's your water line at? We don't know. I'm sure there's water there somewhere. Okay. But, we need to, it's kind of, it's beneficial to send all that to, I don't know if Joe, if the rural water gets a copy of any of that. But the developers, I try to get the architect or the engineer to get in contact, whoever the water supplier is, to make sure that all this stuff gets taken care of, so when it comes to the end and somebody, flushes their toilet, that actually the water comes in and there's not an issue, so.
yeah, well, Joe, unless you send something to him, this development on Mr. Slyman's property, he hadn't seen yet. I think in that email, he was asking about the one at Oberlin Road and 113. So, I'd heard a rumor that wasn't happening, but I talked with the real estate agent, and he said, oh, yeah, it's definitely happening. So, but he's already aware of that and what the water needs are for that particular.
That was approved, wasn't it, when he was?
That was approved by the township, but the developer indicated that he needed, because it got winnowed down from what his original proposal was, and his thing was, well, he needs a minimum of 65 units to justify going forward. We had pointed out to him that the way he had that laid out, without a second point of ingress and egress, it's not going to get approved by the county subdivision regulations, that it didn't comply. He thought, oh, he's still going to get that approved, and he talked about multiple developments throughout Lorraine County that have more, but he ended up finding out, once he went to the county, well, that was under the old regulations. They changed the regulations, and once they changed them, they reduced the number of units that could be on a dead-end street. So he has to work with, and there's still several options for a second entrance, but realize what the township approved since the conservation development, what those local residents want is they want that wooded area remaining. And he had that option of taking the woods down, because, he does have the option to purchase the 100 acres all to the south, but to get there, he'd have to interconnect it with the road, and any developer, once they put a roadway in, they want to use that road frontage with housing, which means the woods would come down. So what was approved by the township, conservation development, and the woods are conserved. Okay, so he's still got to get a second entrance.
So that's still in the works, it's not?
That's still in the works, so as far as, in response to Joe, is, yes, that's still ongoing, but I can't say definitely, until you see it sold and
Right.
somebody actually starts working out detailed engineering, to me, it's still speculation.
Right.
Okay?
Yep.
All right, anything else? All right. Is there any need for an executive session?
No, sir.
All
None.
right, then I'll make a motion to adjourn.
I will second.
Lynch,
Yes.
Euring,
Yes.
Abraham.
Yes.